And okay, let's go to chapter 11 of Revelation. Here we start. Then I, this is John, was given a reed like a measuring rod, and the angel stood saying, "Rise and measure the temple of God." Now all of a sudden, like Drew was talking about last hour, we're going between, the literal and the figurative and the, what was he talking about before? The allegorical yesterday? I can't remember, but boy, if I can't remember, how can you guys remember, right? But because there's so much going on in these classes. But all of a sudden, we're seeing this between heaven and earth thing, and you have to ask yourself, where is this temple? We've already seen a temple, always talking about the one that's in heaven. This one isn't in heaven. This temple is an end of days third temple that stands in the city of Jerusalem. Now, just saying that inflames the volatile hatred of 1.2 billion Muslims, because Jerusalem is the second holiest spot to them on earth. You know, Mecca with the stone and where they go on Hajj and all the pilgrimages is number one, and the Al-Aqsa Mosque of Jerusalem, which was built during the Muslim occupation of Jerusalem on top of where the church was born. Did you know that the Muslims always build their mosque, if they can, over special spots that have to do with Christianity or Judaism? The Dome of the Rock is built over the spot where Abraham offered Isaac on top of Mount Moriah. That's why it's there. And it's to overcome the Jewish influence. And so they built, number two, Al-Aqsa, over the southern steps of the temple, which was the outpouring of the Spirit on the thousands during the day of Pentecost, as the early believers came from the upper room and just walked a little ways and came to the largest public gathering place, which, by the way, at the bottom has all the mikvaot, the mikvah, the baptistries, you could call them, of the Jews. That's where the 3,000 on the day of Pentecost were baptized. And above that is where they built this Al-Aqsa. And so for me to say that there's going to be an end of days third temple standing in the area they've taken over with the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa is inflammatory. But I'm glad I'm not saying it. I would never say that. God said it. And so John is measuring it. Now, this future Jewish temple during the tribulation in Jerusalem, Daniel saw it in Daniel 9:27. He said that the Antichrist, the worst human that's ever lived, is the one that brings about this treaty that Israel signs on to. By the way, why is Israel so allowed to make so many problems for the world? Have you ever thought about that? I mean, Israel is it's a postage stamp sized country. It's the size of New Jersey. I don't mean anything wherever Lucas is about New Jersey and all you New Jerseyites, but that's how big the land area of Israel is. So it's like a small U.S. state, but the whole world's looking at it. Why? Well, number one, the Lord put his name on it, but number two, they have had the unusual ability to make stuff. I mean, it's a Jewish physicist that invented, the E equals MC2 that unleashed the atomic bombs and nuclear fission and all that stuff. Also, the Jews themselves, developed the neutron bomb. They have developed so many things that make them feared because they are an undeclared nuclear power that has nuclear submarine-based ballistic missiles, plus all their land-based, that the world kind of treats them. They're, I think, the number 4 nuclear power after the U.S. and Russia and probably China, and I'm not sure who, and then Israel. And they are good at everything. But that's not why they're feared. They're feared because God has put an attachment on them that the nations that come against them, their chariot wheels come off. And so that's why they're allowed to be there, and God has protected them. But Daniel says the Antichrist stops sacrifice and offering in this temple. Jesus talked in Matthew 24 about the temple as the holy place. Paul saw it in 2 Thessalonians 2:4 and calls it the temple, and John is measuring it right now. So even though 99% of all Reformed theologians and commentators, including Martin Luther and John Calvin and all the popular present ones, like John Piper and Wayne Grudem, even though they don't believe that there'll be this temple there, Jesus and Daniel and Paul and John do believe it. Isn't that interesting? How theologians can, by the way, systematic theology. I taught systematic theology and at the Master's Seminary, and I always told the students, I said, the Bible's like a deck of cards, and systematic theology is dealing the deck of cards into piles. And you choose what pile you put things on. And so the Reformed covenant theologians, a verse they don't understand, they put it into what you heard about yesterday, the allegorical, that can mean almost anything, and I'll tell you what it means. We, in dispensationalism, say, wow, if Jesus saw this and told people when they see something happening there in the tribulation, run, when Paul saw the Antichrist in the temple setting up an image of himself, when Daniel said that the Antichrist makes a covenant so the Jews can restart their offering of sacrifices, wow, that's got to go on the not allegorical pile. That's got to go on the prophetic pile.